Welcome to Not Just a Transaction, a podcast series hosted by experienced real estate authorities Nick Prefontaine and Zachary Beach. In each episode, the hosts bring you expert guests to help you navigate the many creative options available for buying or selling a home, while cutting out the costly hurdles of a conventional real estate deal. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Not Just a Transaction, the show where we bring real advice to buyers and sellers. Today, we'd like to welcome on to the show one of our associates, one of our top associates, and he's actually become our strategy expert out in a different part of the country. Brian, do you want to introduce yourself and tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and kind of what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Nick, thanks for having me on the podcast. Been looking forward to this and always enjoy chatting with you. So just wanted to get that out of the way. I'm Brian O'Neill, as you mentioned, strategy expert. I work with the team. I'm in Chicago and I've been here for 17 years, and I am the founder of BKW Property Solutions. So I buy homes on terms in the Chicagoland area, and then I sell them on a rent-to-own basis. I've been doing that for about 15 months. Prior to that, I was in the corporate world for 25 years. I was with the same company for 17 years. And just recently, this past September, I left my full-time job, and I've been doing this full-time, and it's been quite rewarding.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time this afternoon to join us. Now, if you are listening or watching, I'm not sure, but when you're hearing us, you'll notice that someone is missing from this podcast, from this show, and that's Zach. Zach decided to take the day off. He's relaxing at home. No, that's couldn't be further from the truth. Zach is definitely tied up and busy in other appointments and couldn't make it today. Although we miss him and wish he was here, Brian and I certainly feel that we can run with it together because we have, as Brian was mentioning, such a good relationship, and I'm just happy that you were able to join us. So, talking, Brian, to our buyers and sellers out there, because that's who this show is dedicated to. Why should they care about the stuff that you have to share today? Why is it a help to them?
Yeah, great question. I appreciate you asking me that. And, it's interesting because I have personal experience on both sides of this, okay? On the seller side and the buyer side, and I'll explain further how. I remember, and one of the reasons that my wife and I started this business and decided to go this route. Back in 2013, we had put our primary residence on the market, on the MLS. We had purchased another home, the home that I'm in right now, committed to. It was a new build, so there was no, if you walked away, you lose your deposit. So we had to sell the house. I didn't want to have to carry two mortgages. That was real fear that we faced personally. And when we got to the end of the transaction, it finally happened. We were on the market for a while. Maybe started in the summertime and then ended up selling it February of the following year. So it took a while. And one of the things that happened that it still bothers me today when I talk about it was, we had started, we went on with a realtor and we had started at, a certain price, and the strategy was very clear to continue the strategic price drops. Until the point that, the equity position that we had in the house was dwindled down to not much. And I said, man, I literally said to my wife, I said, I could have done that. I could have done this. I didn't need to pay somebody else to do this. And again, no knock on realtors, but I just was thinking to myself, man, there's got to be a better way. Well, that was, 8 years ago. And, fast forward now today, I'm able to provide a better way, another solution. And that's buying houses on terms, whether it's a lease purchase or owner financing or some other method of purchasing your house and preserving your cash position in the home. As long as you're willing to wait for it. I mean, I certainly would have, but that's really how on the seller side, one of the things that we can really do is maximize the cash position in the home. Regarding the buyers, this goes back to my 20s. I talk to a lot of people who need help, whether they're self-employed or they had a life event, a bad relationship, medical bills, something that happened to them that wasn't that might have been out of their control, but damaged their credit. And unfortunately, the banks view that as, hey, you're not worthy. You're not ready to buy a house right now, even though everything else might be in place. Your income, your down payment, the credit piece just isn't there. You're no less deserving of anyone else to buy a home. And I'm super passionate about that because I've met a lot of people. I've heard a lot of stories where I firmly believe that, you deserve a second chance. It's actually one of my core values in my business. Actually, the first one that's listed is we believe in second chances. I had credit issues when I was younger. Back in my 20s, I made some decisions that, weren't the best and that followed me around for a while, and it took a while for my credit to get to the point where I was able to buy a home. It was still challenging, but I was able to do it. So I'm very passionate about both ends, the buyer and the seller. I hope that wasn't too long-winded there, Nick.
No, I mean, thank you for sharing that. I didn't know all that about you. The fact that when you were in 2013, and if I'm doing the dates right in my head, it's probably towards the end of 2013, right?
That's when we put the house. That's when we put that. Ended up finding the buyer, and then it closed. Took 45 days to close. Yeah, so it was right around Christmas time that we got the offer on the house in 2013. Yes.
That's amazing. I don't think you realized this, or maybe you did realize it, but that was right around the time when my dad, Chris Prefontaine, started Property Solutions. Right around the end of 2013. So I did not realize that. I didn't realize a lot of that about you. Thank you a lot for sharing and being here and being so open about that. I really appreciate that. Why, before we go into the kind of the wrap up and the final question, talk about a little bit about the ideal sellers who you're helping and the ideal buyers who you're helping, if it's a little different from what you already mentioned.
Sure. So there definitely are similarities on both ends. So, my sellers, my ideal sellers, I'm typically solving some type of problem, whether they've, again, like my issue, I had another house. I didn't want to have to carry 2 mortgage payments. That wasn't in the cards for me at the time. Or maybe they need to relocate. There's been a lot of relocating going on this year with COVID. People are migrating to different states. We see a lot of that, and a lot of sellers have needed help to do that. Couldn't sell their house conventionally on the market for whatever reason, whether they didn't, the buyers didn't like the layout, or it was on a corner lot, just crazy stuff that our buyers aren't concerned with. So I'm really looking to match up with the seller who has something that I can solve. I can be of service, and most importantly, that seller is not afraid to ask for the help. That's something I always look for in a match. It's like not everyone's a candidate. Like most people are just going to sell their house conventionally. I'm looking to try to change a life on both sides. On the buyers, we were talking before we got on the air here. I have several houses with buyers in them, and a handful of them they all work for the post office. So it's really kind of, and that's an ideal seller for me. Single females who are work for the post office, and most of them have like a side business as well. They're self-employed, so very dedicated, very motivated, work extremely hard. They work super long hours at the post office, and then they do this side business. It's actually inspiring. I'm like, how do you do this? How do you have enough time to do it? And I can tell you, they all pay on time. They all do exactly what we ask them to do in terms of the buyer process. Like, I don't have to worry about them. I really don't. And in some cases, they're actually better than some of the sellers that I've helped, if that makes any sense. I'm sure you have experience with that.
Or energy. How do you have that energy to keep going and even after hours to also do your side business? That's
remarkable. It's remarkable. As you know, because the post office is, they're understaffed and they're super busy. So I mean, some people are sleeping there, and waiting for the next shift. It's just crazy. Yeah.
Insane. Now, I think that actually is funny. I didn't know it would come up, but earlier this year we closed just for everyone to have an understanding, listeners, both buyers and sellers, like, does this really work? Earlier this year, we did have tenant buyers get their own loan on the property that we sold it to them back 3 years ago. Back in 2017. And the husband worked for the Postal Service. The same thing. So when Brian mentioned that, my antennas went up. I definitely wanted to relate to that. And I think it's great. You're able to help out those people and to give them a second chance. That is one of the things that we believe here as well is, there's no one size fits all. And just because you don't fit into a box doesn't mean you're a bad person or a bad buyer. There's always a solution. Now, in wrapping up, Brian, why do you care? Why do you give a shit about helping? In other words, why is it not just a transaction for you?
Great question. I love the wrap up question. And there's so many reasons why I care. And I can tell you that when I first started doing this, like, the reasons behind it were not necessarily clear or evident until I started doing it and having experiences with these people on both sides, the sellers and the buyers, and just seeing, the gratitude come at me. I wasn't expecting it. I mean, I've had, again, this is pre-COVID. I've had people hug me, I bought and sold 3 houses in my life. I've never gotten emotional about any of them to the point where you're tearing up. And to see that, to know that I'm making a difference in a family is really powerful. And I wasn't expecting it. And it's forced me to really think about my business and how I want to proceed moving forward. And that's like one of our metrics is families served, like the number of families that we can serve. And I feel drawn to this. I feel an obligation. I feel like this is one of my duties in life, is to help people, again, on both sides, the seller and the buyer side. And for couple of simple reasons. Number one, I have the ability to do it. But mainly because I've been helped along the way in my life as well. So many people have helped me. Again, I mentioned my credit challenges. I didn't get out of that on my own. And just getting to this point, I mean, you personally have helped me, your family. I've just had a lot of help along the way. There's way too many people to name. I'd be given like an Oscar speech here, and they'd be playing the music. But it's just a matter of I can and I want to, and I'm super passionate about it. And again, people deserve another chance, or 2 in some cases.
I'm sure if Zach was here, he'd be the one singing.
He would
singing you out. Absolutely. Well, I think it was not to backtrack here, but at the beginning when you first started talking, I think it was important that you said, "Well, people hug me," but that was pre-COVID.
Yeah. Right.
What if it was during COVID and they were hugging you? Would you still be okay with that?
I don't, it's just maybe, or it would just be like a close elbow or something. But
Yeah.
again, still the emotion was
The
there.
emotion,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it may as well have been. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks. Really appreciate it, Brian. You taking a few minutes out of your day to join us for another episode of Not Just a Transaction. Now, I just want to be clear with all listeners. Make sure you're tuning in next week where we dive deeper into a subject that's important to both the buyers out there and the sellers out there, and how we're making a difference in their lives. Hope you guys and girls out there have a great day, and we look forward to helping you real soon. If you're interested in learning more about Property Solutions and how we can help you, go to property with a Y, solutions with an S.com. So that's propertysolutions.com. And what you can do if you're looking to buy, check out the video right on the homepage that goes over how our rent-to-own program works. And either way, fill out a contact us form and someone will be in touch with you real soon. Look forward to helping you. Thanks for listening to another episode of Not Just a Transaction. If you want to explore selling a home, buying a home, or resources to learn more, go to propertysolutions.com.